Land of the Giants is an hour-long American science fiction television program lasting 2 seasons beginning on September 22, 1968, and ending on March 22, 1970. The show was created and produced by Irwin Allen. Land of the Giants was the fourth of Allen's science fiction TV series. The show was aired on ABC and released by 20th Century Fox Television. The series was filmed entirely in color and ran for 51 episodes. The show starred Gary Conway and Don Marshall. Author Murray Leinster also wrote 3 novels in 1968 and 1969 based on the television series. Show premise: set in the then-future year of 1983, the series tells the tale of the crew and passengers of a suborbital transport spaceship called the Spindrift. In the pilot episode, the Spindrift is en route from Los Angeles to London via the ultra-fast route of a parabolic trajectory. Just beyond Earth's boundary with space, the Spindrift encounters a strange spacestorm and is transported to a mysterious planet where everything is 12 times larger than its counterpart on Earth. The Spindrift crew call the inhabitants the Giants. The Spindrift crashes on this planet and becomes inoperable. Very little is known about the home planet of the Giants. This is partially because the Spindrift crew very seldom leaves the city of the Giants, where their spaceship crashed in the pilot. Only 2 other giant unidentified societies are ever seen, in the episodes The Land of the Lost, and Secret City of Limbo. No name has ever even been established for the mysterious planet, but the inhabitants seem to know of Earth, Venus and Mars, referring to them by name in one episode. Exactly where the planet is located is also never made clear. In the episode On a Clear Night You Can See Earth, the character Captain Steve Burton claims to have seen Earth through a set of infrared goggles invented by the Giants, implying that the 2 worlds are indeed different but near enough to be able to see one from the other. Whether he is telling the truth is unclear. The only established method by which Earth people may reach the planet is some sort of high-altitude spacecraft, passing through what one giant calls a dimension lock. It is not entirely clear what the term dimension lock means. Although several episodes show that at least 6 other flights have landed on the planet, no episode shows anyone ever successfully returned to Earth. The first mention of other visitors from Earth was in episode 2, where another ship was described as crashing long ago without any survivors. In episode 4 another Earth ship is described as crashing 3 years prior with no survivors. Several episodes show crews surviving the initial crash, only to be killed later. The episode Brainwash has a crew of little people surviving long enough to build a radio station that can communicate with Earth. They are killed shortly thereafter. The episodes Golden Cage and The Lost Ones show there have been a few survivors of other crashes. Only the Spindrift crew seems to have survived long-term, with its party intact. One continent or hemisphere is wholly dominated by an authoritarian government which, however, tolerates broad freedoms for a capitalist system. It simply does not tolerate any effort to effect political change. Exactly what the political situation is on other continents is not known, although at least one overseas land has a despotic ruler. The air traffic control will tell those who venture far out to sea that they should turn back, that nothing beyond that sea has been explored nor is there current contact. Whether this is an official government line or the truth is not known. Culturally, the society resembles in some respects that of 1960s United States of America. The Earth people find themselves able to cope at a cultural level. Their efforts to get around are facilitated by the ubiquity of large drains directly from interior rooms to the pavement level at an outside wall of most buildings. The giant government is offered a reward for the capture of the tiny Earth people. In spite of the authoritarianism, there are several dissident movements at work that either help other dissenters or are actively working to unseat the ruling party. The government has established the SID, Special Investigations Department, to deal with assorted dissidents, but it also has taken the lead in dealing with the Earth people. The technology largely resembles mid-20th century Earth, though significantly more advanced in other respects and slightly behind in others. The Earth people's objectives are survival, by obtaining food and by avoiding capture by the native people or menace from small animals like cats and dogs. repair of their spacecraft so they may take off and attempt to return to Earth. They largely manage survival with the help of sympathizers and the stealth of their small size, and ingenuity using the Earth's technology. They do not achieve the second objective, however, since the primary systems of their craft are heavily damaged. The secondary systems are insufficient to allow takeoff and the suborbital flight required. They are unable to successfully integrate the native technology as it is bulky and less advanced. In one episode, an experimental nuclear reactor provided by an engineering student produces dangerous side effects and is prone to overload. They also cannot trust the Giants, who might be able to offer the Earth people a ride home in exchange for technical assistance. They are aided in the first goal, and at least somewhat hindered in the second, by the leadership of Captain Steve Burton. He behaves as leader, protector to the passengers and crew, and his leadership has rescued them from a number of difficulties. Captain Burton also tries to keep the Giants from ever reaching Earth. In the episode Brainwash, Giant police officer Ashim says maybe we can find the home planet of these little people. It may be a very tiny planet, but rich beyond our dreams. In several episodes Steve puts keeping the Giants away from Earth above the need to get his people home. At the end of those episodes, he destroys devices that would get the spin drift back to Earth, but would probably also enable the Giants to journey there as well. Episodes often have the plot of Giants capturing one of the passengers or crew, with the rest having to rescue him or her. The Earth people avoid capture most of the time because their spaceship is hidden in a forest outside the city. They also occasionally form alliances with individual Giants to achieve some commonly beneficial purpose. Production: the show was created by Irwin Allen. With a budget of $250,000 per episode, Land of the Giants set a new record. The actors had to be physically fit, as they had to do many stunts themselves, such as climbing giant curbs, phone cords and ropes. Don Marshall, who played the part of Dan Erickson, credited his previous football, track and pole vaulting work for helping him with the stunts required. Elements of Allen's Lost in Space series recur in Land of the Giants, notably the relationship between the foolish, greedy traitor, and on-the-run bank robber named Alexander B. Fitzhugh, and the young boy Barry Lockridge. Paralleling the relationship in Lost in Space between Dr. Zachary Smith and the young Will Robinson. The show was set to premiere as a mid-season replacement, and the first 12 episodes were shot in the fall of 1967. This was changed and Giants premiered in September 1968 for a full season. The network screened the episodes in a significantly different order to the production sequence. This caused a disconcerting lapse in continuity, as at first the Giants moved slowly and hardly spoke. For example, Ghost Town was the 14th episode filmed, but it was the second episode aired. The cost of production was immense, and it was more time, labor and cost-effective to film one episode and then the next on the same set, so writers were probably informed about already constructed props that were available which they could incorporate into storylines. These episodes were filmed back-to-back. In the unaired pilot of The Crash, there is no end scene with the giant dog and the garbage dump. Once it had been confirmed that Land of the Giants had been picked up by the network, the pilot was reworked and production began on successive episodes. Cast: Gary Conway as Captain Steve Burton, Don Marshall as Dan Erickson, Don Matheson as Mark Wilson, Kurt Kassar as Alexander Fitzhugh, Stefan Ungram as Barry Lockridge, Deanna Lund as Valerie Scott, Heather Young as Betty Hamilton, Kevin Hagen as Inspector Kobik. Land of the Giants guest stars included many familiar faces from other 1950s and 1960s sci-fi fantasy and adventure series. These popular, well-known character actors included Chris Alcade, Michael Ansra, Warren Stevens, John Carradine, David Opatoshu, Charles Drake, Jonathan Harris, Jack Albertson, Larry Pennell and Alan Hale, Jr. Episodes. Music. Like Allen's previous series Lost in Space and The Time Tunnel, the theme music was composed by John Williams. As with Lost in Space, Williams composed two different themes. Williams also scored the pilot episode The Crash, and was the third composer to be attached to the project. Williams' work replaced a rejected score and theme by Alexander Courage. Joseph Melendor composed a second theme that was also thrown out. Melendor later scored 5 episodes and Courage did 1, with other episodes scored by Richard Lasalle, Leith Stevens, Harry Geller, Irving Gertz, Paul Sautel and Robert Prinz. Soundtrack GNP Crescendo released an album as part of the Fantasy Worlds of Irwin Allen, featuring both themes. Williams' replacement score on Courage's thrown-out score for The Crash. Land of the Giants main title, Season 1, Of Course the Landing Dense Fog, Giant Eyes Hidden Gun The Big Cat Bug Box, Fitzhugh's Gun Hiding Place, Giants Probing the Rescue, Water Drain More Garbage, Land of the Giants end title, Season 1 Land of the Giants main title, Season 2, Space Storm Through the Thing Crash Landing Giant Ford, The Sniveling Sneak, Land of the Giants end title, Season 2. DVD releases. All 51 episodes were released on DVD in Region 1 in a limited edition 9-disc complete series on July 24, 2007 from 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment. This includes the unaired original pilot, which has some differences and score music familiar to Lost in Space fans and interviews with cast members. In Region 2, Revelation Films has released the entire series on DVD in the UK. Season 1 was released on March 28, 2011 and Season 2 on June 13, 2011. They also released a complete series set on March 12, 2012. In Region 4, Madman Entertainment released Season 1 on DVD in Australia on August 20, 2014. Merchandise and licensing. The pilot episode was the subject of a Viewmaster reel and booklet set in 1968. One notable difference between the aired episode and the reel set is an image of the Spindrift flying through the giant forest in apparent daylight. In the aired episode, the Spindrift arrives on the Giant's planet during the night, and its flight through the forest also occurs that same night. Though the following is unconfirmed, either the daylight shot was a special effects sequence cut from the aired pilot, or a special setup for the Viewmaster photographers. In 1968, Pyramid Books published an extended novel adaptation of the pilot, written by famed author Murray Leinster. Among notable changes or inventions is that the Spindrift is still an operational, flying ship after the initial crash, with enough atomic power to last as much as several months. Another invention for the novel is the knowledge that 2 other ships, the Anne and Marintha, disappeared via the same mysterious phenomena which sends the Spindrift to the Giant's planet. The Spindrift castaways encounter a female survivor of the Anne named Marjorie, who joins the castaways in this novel. Although the TV series featured 3 episodes with other on-screen survivors from previously lost Earth flights, the novel's character Marjorie and the ships Anne and Marintha do not appear and are not mentioned in the series. There were 2 further novels by Murray Leinster, The Hot Spot and Unknown Danger. The first 2 Leinster books were reprinted in the UK by World Distributors, with the first given the new title The Trap. World also published 2 UK-only novels, Slingshot for a David and The Mean City. Both were credited to James Bradwell, but as the style of the 2 books is so dissimilar, the name may have been a shared pen name for 2 anonymous authors. A hardback novel for children, Flight of Fear by Carl Henry Rothgen was published in the US by Whitman. Also in 1968 Gold Key Comics published a comic book version of Land of the Giants. It lasted for 5 issues. In 2010 all 5 issues were reprinted together as a hardcover book by Hermes Press. In 1968, Aurora Plastics Company produced 2 plastic model kits based on the series. Land of the Giants was the title of a diorama depicting a giant snake attacking the characters Steve Burton, Dan Erickson and Betty Hamilton. The second kit was a model kit of the Spindrift. In 1975, Aurora reissued the kit, now renamed Rocket Transport Spindrift, with new box art and photos of the assembled kit. It had a front top section that could be lifted off to reveal a full interior that had to be constructed by the builder, as well as an opening door. Most of the model kit was molded in the same bright red-orange as the ship itself, while the interior was molded in a light green that could be painted. Deanna Lund co-wrote a series of fan fiction short stories based on the series, Valerie in Giantland. References. External links. Land of the Giants at the Internet Movie Database, Land of the Giants at TV.com.